know that feeling? The one where the hairs on the back of your neck stand up for no reason, where your eyes instinctively dart to a dark corner of the room, and for just a fraction of a second, you're not sure you're alone. Most of us shake it off. We tell ourselves it's just the shadows, just our imagination, just stress. But what if it wasn't? What if something saw you first and decided to follow you home? Tonight, I have 3 stories, 3 real accounts from 3 different people, 3 encounters with something that didn't belong in the dark, but was there anyway. These are not urban legends. These are not campfire tales. These are the stories people whispered when no one was supposed to be listening. Stay close, keep the lights on, and whatever you do, don't look over your shoulder while I'm talking. Because right now, something might already be watching. I'm not someone who spooks easily. I'm a big guy, 6'2", worked night shifts for 8 years. I've walked through industrial parks at 3 a.m. I've driven back roads with 1 headlight. Fear wasn't really in my vocabulary. Or at least, that's what I told myself before the night of October 14th. It was a Tuesday, nothing special about it. Cold, overcast, that kind of gray October dark where the clouds swallow all the moonlight. I clocked out of my shift at the warehouse around 2:30 a.m. and started the 12-minute walk home. I did that walk every single night. I knew every cracked sidewalk square, every flickering streetlight, every dog that barked behind the chain-link fence on Dempsey Road. I was about halfway home when I noticed something at the far end of the street. At first, I thought it was a person. Just someone standing on the sidewalk, maybe 200 feet ahead of me. I didn't think much of it. Night owls exist, insomniacs, people who smoke outside. Except this person wasn't moving. At all. Now look, a stationary person at 2 a.m. is a little odd, but I kept walking toward it because what else was I gonna do? Turn around and add 15 minutes to my walk? I'm a grown man. But as I got closer, maybe 150 feet now, I started to realize something wasn't right about the silhouette. It was too tall, unnaturally tall, like 6.5, maybe 7 feet, and it was thin, too thin, the kind of thin where you think you're looking at a shadow that someone forgot to attach to a body. I slowed my pace. My hand instinctively went to my phone in my jacket pocket, and then it turned, slowly, like it had been waiting for me to slow down, like it was responding to me. I stopped walking completely. The figure was facing me now. I couldn't make out a face. There was no face, just this long, smooth oval where a face should have been, pale, almost luminous against the dark, and it was looking at me. I know that sounds impossible. How can something without eyes look at you? But I felt it. Like a pressure behind my eyes, like something pressing against the glass from the other side. I took 1 step back, and the figure took 1 step forward. I turned and ran. I am not ashamed to admit that. I ran faster than I've run since high school, heart slamming in my chest, not daring to look back. I made it to my apartment building, fumbled with the key fob, burst through the door, and sprinted to my unit on the 2nd floor. I locked the deadbolt, then the chain, then I just stood there, chest heaving, back against the door. It took me about 2 minutes to calm myself down enough to look through my peephole. Nothing in the hallway. I moved to my window. I faced the street from my unit, and I peered down through the blinds. The street was empty. I breathed. I told myself I'd imagined it. Sleep deprivation. The dark plays tricks. I was fine. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor, Trey, who lives across the hall. It said, "Hey man, did you see that tall thing standing outside? It's been there for an hour, right below your window." I looked back through the blinds. It was there, standing directly beneath my window, facing up, still, watching. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, it was gone, but I never did that walk alone again. And some nights, when I have to drive past that stretch of road, I keep my eyes straight ahead. Because I'm not sure what happens if you look when it's already looking back.
I moved into my new apartment in September, a 1-bedroom in an old Victorian building that had been converted into units sometime in the 70s. The landlord called it charming. The exposed brick, the tall, narrow windows, the clawfoot tub. I called it exactly what I needed, affordable and close to campus. There was one thing that felt off from day one: the mirror. It was a full-length antique mirror, mahogany frame, slightly foxed glass that gave everything this faint amber tint. It was bolted to the wall in the narrow hallway between the bedroom and the bathroom. The landlord said it was original to the building, too heavy and too fixed in the plaster to remove safely. I figured I'd get used to it. For the first couple weeks, everything was normal. I'd pass the mirror a dozen times a day, heading to the bathroom at night, getting ready for class in the morning. It was just a mirror. But around the third week, I started noticing that I was avoiding looking at it directly. Not on purpose. I didn't consciously decide to avert my eyes. I'd just find myself turning my face slightly as I walked past. At first, I told myself I was being vain, didn't want to catch myself looking bad at odd angles. But deep down, I knew it was something else. The mirror felt like it was watching. I know how ridiculous that sounds. I'm a biology PhD candidate. I don't believe in the supernatural. But there's a difference between what your rational mind accepts and what your nervous system registers. And my nervous system was screaming. Then, one night at around 3 a.m., I'd been up late writing a paper. I walked past the hallway toward the bathroom. I glanced at the mirror out of reflex, and I stopped cold. My reflection was there, but it was a half second behind me. I don't mean a lag like a camera delay. I mean, I stopped moving. My reflection kept moving for just a moment, and then it stopped too, and it turned its head toward me in a way that I hadn't turned my head at all. I screamed, not a little gasp, a real, full-throated scream. My upstairs neighbor banged on his floor. That brought me back to earth a little. I stood there shaking, and I looked at the mirror again. Just my reflection, perfectly in sync, perfectly normal. I told myself I was exhausted. I told myself the brain does strange things when you've been staring at a screen for 6 hours. I believed it enough to go to sleep. 3 nights later, I woke up at 3:17 a.m. for no reason. I know the exact time because I checked my phone immediately. I lay there for a moment in the dark, and then I heard it. A sound from the hallway. A soft, rhythmic sound, like someone tapping one finger on glass, slowly, deliberately. Tap, tap, tap. I got out of bed. I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, looking down the dark hallway toward the mirror. I couldn't see anything. I hadn't turned a light on, but I could hear it, the tapping, coming from the mirror. I turned on my phone flashlight and shone it down the hall. In the mirror, standing behind my reflection, was a figure, tall, dark, featureless. It was standing right behind where I should have been, and it was pressing one long finger against the glass from the inside. I didn't move. I couldn't move. My entire body went rigid. We stood there, me and this thing, for what felt like forever, but was probably 5 seconds. And then, it slowly turned and walked back into the darkness of the mirror, into a space that couldn't exist behind that wall. I covered the mirror with a bedsheet that night. I called my landlord in the morning and told him I'd pay for whatever damage it caused getting it off the wall. He sent a handyman that afternoon. It took 4 hours and 2 crowbars to get it loose. When they finally pulled it free, there was something written on the back of the frame in what looked like very old ink, or maybe something darker. A single word: hello. I moved out 2 weeks later. I don't own any mirrors now. I use my phone camera to check my appearance before I leave the house, and I never, ever look at the back of anything reflective in the dark. Because what if something on the other side looks back first?
I want to start by saying I am not a dramatic person. I've worked in emergency rooms for 15 years. I've seen things that would make most people's trauma nightmares look like a Pixar movie. I don't rattle. Or I didn't before last spring. It started small, the way these things always do. I'm a single mom. My daughter Maya is 9, and we live in a 2-story house on a quiet street in a suburb that is about as boring and normal as it gets. Good schools, friendly neighbors, the kind of place where people wave when they drive past. In March, I started noticing a shadow figure in my peripheral vision, Always at night, always at the edge of something. The hallway, the backyard seen through the kitchen window, the side of the garage when I pulled in after a late shift. Every time I turned to look directly at it, it was gone. I put it down to fatigue. Night shifts are brutal. Your brain starts filling in shapes in the dark. But then it started learning. That's the part that terrifies me most even now. It wasn't just appearing randomly. It began to show up at specific, predictable moments. When I went to lock the back door at 10:30, every single night I locked the back door at 10:30. I'd see it standing at the far end of the backyard. When I did my final check on Maya's room, I peek in at 11 p.m. without fail. I'd see it just outside her window between the house and the fence. It knew my routine. It had been watching long enough to know my routine. The first time I tried to convince myself it was coincidence. The second time I was unsettled, but still in denial. By the 7th or 8th time, I was terrified, because nothing that belongs in the normal world learns your schedule. I set up a camera, an outdoor security camera pointed at the backyard, the kind with night vision. I did it quietly, without telling anyone, without making a show of it. I didn't want to scare Maya. The footage from the first night was blank. Second night, blank. Third night, I almost didn't check it, but I did. There, at the far edge of the backyard, at exactly 10:33 p.m., 3 minutes after I'd locked the back door, was a dark shape, tall, still, standing just at the boundary where the night vision started to lose resolution, like it knew exactly where the camera's range ended. I watched it for the full 2 hours it was visible on the footage. It never moved. It just stood there, all night. I called the police. They came, they walked the yard, they found nothing. They were kind about it. They're always kind when they think you're imagining things. I didn't sleep for 4 days. I changed my routine, locked the back door at different times each night, varied when I checked on Maya, and for a while, the sightings stopped. And then one night, I was sitting in the kitchen at 2 a.m., couldn't sleep, drinking tea, and I heard Maya call out from upstairs, "Mom, Mom, there's someone at my window." I was up those stairs in 4 seconds. I burst into her room. She was sitting up in bed, pointing at her window. I crossed to it and looked outside. It was there, standing below her window, looking up. And then, slowly, deliberately, it turned its head toward me. And I had this sudden, visceral, absolute certainty that it recognized me, that it had always known exactly who I was. I pulled Maya close, and we drove to my mother's house at 2 a.m. I had the house professionally cleared. I know. The guys I hired were ex-military, not ghost hunters. I put real locks on every window. I put motion-activated floodlights in the backyard. Maya hasn't seen it since, but I have, once, 3 months later, just for a second in my rear-view mirror on a dark road, a shape in the back seat, and then gone. Some things don't stop following you. They just get patient.
3 stories. 3 people who still sleep with a light on. A shadow that mirrors your steps. A figure behind the glass. Something that learns your patterns and waits. If any part of these stories felt familiar, if you've ever seen something dark at the edge of your vision, something too still, too tall, too knowing to be explained, then you understand why these people told their stories. Because keeping it inside doesn't make it go away. It just gives the darkness more time to get comfortable. Sleep well tonight, and if you hear something at the glass, don't look. It knows you already.